Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network. We are the #1 media company in the United States, and Big C Sports is voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and his good old boys down south. And we do trust the vote. They're also the ones counting the national vote between Trump and Clinton, so we trust those good old boys. Also, I want to say bienvenidos to all our listeners in Latin America. We thank you for following Big C Sports, and also we'll make sure that even if that wall is built somehow on your money, that we're going to make sure you can still pipe in Big C Sports. Also, I want to say thank you for listening across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, and there's another country up north called Canada. We love you, Canada. Thank you for following Big C Sports. But Big C, there's no one I love more than the land of the free and the home of the brave. How's it going for you good old boys down south, Big C?
I think we're all getting a little nervous, but I got a better chance of building a wall in front of my house than we doing all the work. But think about that, Charlton. All this talk about building a wall, do people not really look at that from an inverted perspective? If you build a wall, you're saying you're keeping somebody out, but who the hell are you keeping in?
Yeah.
You can't get in and we can't get out. So I don't feel comfortable with that in either perspective.
Well, see, those good old boys down south in Texas, they don't understand they're building a prison. They just call it a wall, Big C. It's called an inverted fact. Okay, just keep in mind, it's an inverted fact, but there's so much happening.
What was Kellyanne call about the alternative truth?
Yeah, alternative truth, alternative facts. Yeah.
I'm boxing them up here. I don't give you guys, this is becoming a dictatorship under me.
Hey.
I'm keeping other people out, but I'm not letting you go anywhere. So I guess everybody's not canceling things.
Some Americans are so dumb, they're willing to build their own prisons, Big C. That's a good old political statement right there. But I also want to say, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac leaders, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And you got to know that Big C is the one with all the mud on it. Big C, from what I understand, that Escalade, that engine is strong enough to pull the steel beams they're going to use for Donald Trump to build that wall, Big C. What do you think about that, Big C? Yeah.
A whole lot, but it would probably be easier just to drive underneath in one of the tunnels of the town and not worry about going over the top.
Yeah.
Let's just drive through one of the tunnels.
That's funny. There's a show called, it used to be called Weeds, and I can't remember the actors in that, but it was very, very good show. And
what was her name? 'Cause she played it in Reds also. God.
Yeah, I know it's slipping my mind, but a great show. It's about this Caucasian middle class woman that lived in. Yeah. Well, it's a middle class Caucasian woman that lives a nice middle class lifestyle. They never do drugs. They never smoke weed. They never do anything illegal, right? I mean, that's the image of white America. And they're telling all these people that everyone from Mexico are rapists and murderers. That's what Donald Trump is saying. And then he has the gall to want to talk to the Mexican president, Big C. He canceled his meeting with Donald Trump today because he realized he's not going to participate in indentured servitude, Big C, so he's not going to even have a meeting with the press. But I just want to bring this point up because sports and politics is synonymous. I'm looking at the news all over the country, where there's the San Francisco Chronicle, they call it the Sporting Green, and a lot of things we talk about, it is up in the San Francisco Chronicle the next day, Big C. There's a writer by the name of Scott Osler, and they don't mention Big C Sports, but I tell you, the show we did, it's in the San Francisco Chronicle today. Look at it on, today is January 26, 2017. Today is Thursday, I believe, Big C, but in an alternative universe, it's really Tuesday. Okay, so just keep it by, Big C. But the show we did Wednesday is actually showing up on Thursday in the San Francisco Chronicle. And so, but I appreciate his presence because in the show Weeds, all of the people who use marijuana, they were Caucasian for the most part. They were not African American. They were not Muslim. And they were not Native Americans, Big C. They were all Caucasian, and they get away with it because they blend in with the criminal justice system, the same people that run it. How does that relate to the sports business? Sports? Yeah, go ahead, Big C. Sports, let me just finish this point real quick. Let me finish this point. Sports is a $1 billion industry, okay? And even in the world of fictional television, where they have these Caucasian housewives, you know, the ones that don't have jobs, but they drive Escalades too, and their husbands are businessmen, quote unquote. Well, when they were bringing the drugs in the country, they weren't rapists and murderers. They were white Americans who worked in 9-to-5 jobs. But because they blend in with the system, I ask any Caucasian person right now listening, whether you're in college or out of college, if you've ever been around illegal drugs, if you've ever used it, if you know anyone that's ever used it or sold it, and then ask yourself this question: how many of you went to prison for doing it? Probably none of you, or maybe 1 out of 1,000. But that's the image that people have when it comes to drugs, that is not a white thing. But there's not enough African Americans in this country to consume the amount of drugs that are sold illegally in the United States. Big C, your thoughts on that?
Well, Charles, you know, when you think about it, and they talk about drugs in the inner city in America, it's, you know, infesting the African American and minority cultures, and that's how they always address it, Charles. But you have to look at it, Charles. Not one of those individuals owns the boat or the plane that brings those narcotics into the U.S., Charles.
Wait, hold on, Big C, hold on. You just messed up Donald Trump's plan. You mean they bring the drugs in on boats and planes, they don't climb the fence? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, you know, they want to lead people to believe that, Charles. But who are the major distributors of the narcotics in the U.S.? And when they talk about it, it's harming cultures and it's killing people off. So who's the number one murderer? Is it the street peddler, Charles, or is it the guy that's bringing it in boats and supplying it? That's why I put that in a disproportionate way, because the guy that's bringing it in, Charles, is not a guy of dark color, not dark complexion.
Yeah.
He is the guy who is sitting out on his yacht, who is sitting in his New York high-rise tower, you know, on the executive board. And I wonder, is that why taxes are not being released, and the affiliation you have with certain people who are some of the larger trafficking countries in the world? Russia's a very large trafficker of opiates, Charles.
Yeah.
Most of the opiates that come to the U.S. are trafficking through Russia.
Yeah.
Get here, okay? Because those little countries where they're grown in the Middle East, they don't have many long-haul jets, you know, cargo planes.
Yeah.
The stuff to the U.S., Charles. So when we think about even Mexico, how much marijuana can you pack on your back walking across the border?
I don't know, Big C, but that's funny. That's funny, Big C. I mean, Americans sometimes we're so dumb that we think the guys that own airplanes that smuggle that garbage in the country are going to be climbing the fence when the guy's holding an M16, you know, 20 feet away. And ironically, you bring that up because even in San Francisco, and I talked about the San Francisco Sporting Green, there's a writer by the name of Scott Ostler. He's a really good writer, and he has this story about politics and sports are now inseparable. It's always been a part of the American fabric, but usually it was hush-hush because a lot of black men, and there's still a few today, they were so afraid to say anything that would keep their kids safe. They would just be the Uncle Tom. Yeah, you know, you're right, boss. Hey, you're right. Hey, you know what, man? I agree with you, man. I agree with you. And so now we have guys who are bold, and because you have your own money, Big C, I don't know if it's moonshine money or stockbroker or whatever you get it from. You and Trump don't show taxes, I understand that. But a lot of people, you're not holding your thoughts because you're afraid of some white guy firing you tomorrow, or some black guy, or some Jewish guy, or some Native American guy, or Asian guy. It doesn't matter. Land of the free, home of the brave. If you're not brave, then get out of the country is what I say, Big C. But I want to just bring this last point up, but I'll get your thought because it's so applicable to sports and guys like Rush Limbaugh. If you build a wall, will it stop Rush Limbaugh from getting this Oxycontin? I think not. And tell me, are there any...
What about Ursley, the owner of the Colts? Where is he going to get his drugs from if Donald builds a wall?
Well,
okay?
that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Think about how much substance that the government controls that comes into this country that's imported. Okay, and Trump is talking about putting tariffs. What's they gonna do to all the rich alcoholics in America? Okay,
yeah.
Those who sit back and drink that exclusive Scotch, brandy, bourbon, you know, cognac.
Yeah.
That is imported from foreign countries. You're gonna put a tariff on it so high that they're not gonna want to drink it. When you mess with happy hour, Charles,
yeah,
you might have a problem in America.
Well, see, the thing about Trump is he has over 400 corporations that he's tied to, and I think 155 are outside of the country. So they're saying he's going to put a tariff on himself, Big C. That's like chaining yourself.
No, remember, he don't pay tax.
Oh, that's right.
That tax will not apply to him.
Okay, IRS 1041, I understand.
Will tax everybody else, but he's tax-free.
Yeah.
He's not going to disclose that he doesn't pay taxes. He's not going to disclose that he has fraudulent tax returns because it's too complicated. But he's going to raise the tariff on everybody else. It's like the president of Mexico, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for him today to say, hey, I'm not going to go sit down with this fool who berated my people for months.
His entire country.
It's my people. That's what I said, my people. That's all he did was denigrated us. And I look at this thing that Trump plays this hate monger.
Yeah.
And people who think that he's not being a hate monger, that he's trying to incite racial bigotry and oppression in this country, to say that the Mexicans, and this is how he says it, and I'm not using it because he's using it.
Right.
You know, he says the Mexicans, you know, these are rapists and murderers.
Yeah.
You know, you pull out the crimes, Charlton, of any race, any ethnicity. You know, I'm reading the news this morning, Charlton, and he want to talk about rapists and murderers.
Yeah.
There were two white men in Cleveland that had imprisoned a 13-year-old cousin of theirs for the past 2 years. Son and a father and son had imprisoned their 13-year-old cousin for the last 2 years.
Wow.
A couple of other young teenage girls held them in their house and slave raped them. Okay? This is not big news. You won't hear Donald Trump talk about this. These are whites doing it, y'all. And I'm not knocking them because they're whites, because they're animals and they should be put away. They should have something heinous done to them.
Yeah.
Not put on trial, but have something heinous done to them for doing this against some young girl. Because I'm a dad.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the number one thing in my life is my daughter. So, you know, I look at this, but he doesn't talk about this. He want to incite insightfulness against a culture of people bringing out a couple of crimes. He's acting like there's no white males in America that's ever committed a crime.
Yeah.
All we got to do is look at the atrocity that's been done against African Americans, Charles.
Yeah.
As far as whites committing crime. What about the atrocities that have done to the Native Americans, Charles, and the Indians?
Yeah.
How many Indians lost their lives because white men's greed? How many slaves lost their lives because of white men? How many free black men lost their lives because of white man's greed? But that's okay. You know, let bygones be bygones. It's always that way.
Well, see. That's so powerful that you said. I just want to say this segment is sponsored by the California Lottery. What can a buck do for you? I think the Mega Million is up to about $100 and something million. I mean, once it gets over $100 million, Big C, who even counts? I keep saying we won it. So maybe in an alternative, wait a minute, I just figured it out. In an alternative world, we have won the Lotto, Big C. So what? We should be celebrating. Thank you, Kellyanne Conway.
We got to call Kellyanne and go on and think about how we won.
Yeah.
You know, you think about his spokesperson, Charles.
Yeah.
It's all led by Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
And people got to understand that Steve Bannon most likely is Rush Limbaugh's brother.
Oh, yeah.
Just a different man. But, you know, to go out and to present yourself and to believe that you have etiquette and your followers, knowing that you're out there spewing lies, not falsehood. I mean, that's a kind white word, falsehood. You're telling a damn lie.
Yeah.
Okay, a lie is a lie. I don't care what color you are. But to be the president of the United States, the greatest free world organization there is in the world, the United States, representing all multifacets of people, whether you're in politics, whether you're in athletics, whether you're in business, whether you're just a layman poor person on the street, you're representing all of those, and you're representing our country with lies that you're telling the world, not just America, you're telling the world. You know, it would almost be like an official, whereas they come on with a penalty, you know, on a play review in the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay, the call on the field, what you saw and we both saw in the replay was accurate. But I'm going to go out with an alternative call here, and I'm going to call it opposite. Okay? I want to see an official do that.
Yeah.
Because this is what the president pushes every day in the news, is that we can use an alternative to what the facts are.
Well, you know what's ironic about that, Big C, being out here in the Northern California Bay Area, there's so many people who hate Colin Kaepernick for standing up against the same bigotry that almost 5 million people marched against Donald Trump for espousing, Big C. Now, when Donald Trump espouses hatred, he got elected president of the United States. But over 5 million people marched all over the country and even all over the world because they opposed that hatred, that Nazi mentality that Adolf Hitler was trying to start up. and they opposed it. The world stood quiet when Hitler was killing Jewish people, and that was wrong. And we can't let that happen again. I'm not saying that Trump is like Hitler, but his speech is the same. It's divisive and it's hateful. And when Colin Kaepernick just took a knee to protest that hatred, people hated him. Now there are 5 million people. Is the country going to take away the 5 million people that also marched against that bigotry, Big C? They're doing the same thing Colin Kaepernick are doing. They don't hate America. They love America. That's why you speak up, Big C. Now, he's an athlete doing it. Am I out of the box, or is that kind of a home run, Big C?
Well, Charles, I had looked at it from that perspective, but you hit the nail on the head. When you talk about what Colin Kaepernick did, he took a stance against the divisiveness of America, of what certain people and certain entities were doing. Now we have a new president that's elected that's standing for all that bigotry and divisiveness in America. The thing that a simple athlete took a stance against, didn't say anything, Jonathan. He was just like the women who marched last week around America and around the world.
Yeah.
They didn't go out and say, terrible things against the country. They spoke about what they didn't believe in. And for them not believing in something, people are calling them, just like they did Colin Kaepernick, anti-American.
Yeah.
It's almost like Steve Bannon said, the White House advisor now.
Yeah.
He said today to the national meeting, you need to just sit down and shut up. This is what he said. The same thing that Dabo Sweeney said.
Yeah.
The coach of Clemson, the college national football team. You need to just sit down and shut up and let what it used to be become what it is now.
Yeah.
This is what so many people in America, and I'm not against these people wanting jobs. We all want employment and better lives for ourselves. And he appealed to those who felt disenchanted because corporations have left where they were. There was a reason why corporations pulled out of certain communities and certain cities. Because it's like the Wall Street when we see it at record highs.
Yeah.
That's because they pulled out of those places.
Yeah.
And so when Trump is talking about, cutting back and putting regulations, what is driving record corporate highs will also make record corporate lows. So it's a two-edged sword. You can drive it up, but when you start talking about costing these companies more money, and that's what America's not understanding.
Yeah.
It's just like when you go to a sporting event, Jonathan, and I know you have to pay for tickets to be out.
No, Big C. I just climbed over the wall that Trump building. They didn't build that wall higher enough, Big C.
When we watch the salaries of players that have escalated over the decades.
Yeah.
When you think about it in the NFL, Jonathan, pre-1983, okay? Pre-1983, in the NFL when the strike came.
Yeah.
The average salary of an NFL player was $123,000.
Wow.
$123,000. A practice roster last year player, Jonathan, in the NFL 2016, the minimum of practice roster to play. This is the guy who only went to practice, ever played the game.
Yeah.
It was $358,000. That's a guy who doesn't play. $358,000. So when you think about that, all of that, even when you look at the guys who play on the field, because of those salaries have gone up, Charlton, the price of admission has gone up to the fan, okay?
Yeah.
And that's how people can relate sports to politics, what's going on right now. I remember as a kid when I could go to a baseball game and get in out in the bleacher seat for $1, $1.25. I think when I stopped going, it was $1.50 back.
Yeah.
$1.50. Try taking your kids to a stadium of any sporting event, even a high school sporting event, Jonathan, and see what $1.50 will get you.
Yeah, it gets you shown the door, Big C. That's what happened when I tried to take my kid. They said, no, you can't. You got to sit outside the fence.
It gets you laughed at. So this is what America needs to understand. Yes, he can impose these taxes and tariffs on all these countries. He knows the smoke screen that he's selling right now. I can't.
Yeah.
But what is going to be the price of that head of lettuce that you go to the grocery store and get? What is going to be the price of that basket of strawberries? We're not talking about getting to the meat, Jonathan. All the meat in America, most people think that American meat comes from American stockyards. No, Jonathan, you need to go down and look at Brazil.
Yeah.
Need to go look at Argentina.
Yeah.
Some of the largest importing countries in the world of meat. And if you want a pork chop, they come from Australia, most of them.
Man, you must have a lot of money eating all that meat, Big C. I'm on a lettuce diet, Big C. People say it's because I want to be healthy. No, because you see the price on a head of lettuce is almost $2, Big C.
Well, what's wall goes up there, it's going to be as much as 5 to 6. You want beef or greens for dinner, you know? This is what we got to look at. So, you ask America to be honest. Just like you ask the referee to be honest in a sporting event.
Yeah.
Call it right.
Yeah.
Be honest about it. Don't sit there on a replay for 3 minutes. Then we all witness in the first run of the replay making a decision. It's not hard to tell whether that ball hit the ground from that receiver or whether that shooter had his toe on the line on that 3-point shot.
Well,
okay?
that's funny, Big C. And as we talk about the world of sports, and we'll blend in sports and politics the way we've been doing for the whole year, Big C, even though the San Francisco Chronicle, they decided today on January 26, 2017 to start publishing what they find on Charlton and Big C Sports, but I don't see our name in here under the credit, Big C, but it's the same thing. Listen to the show, anybody who doubts what I'm saying. And also I want to say, in the Golden State Warriors, and they got a great win over the Charlotte Hornets last night, 113-103, and that game was in Charlotte. It seems like Golden State was a bit sluggish, Big C, but even when they're sluggish, this is a team that can win by double digits. We talk about the Sacramento Kings with an upset win over the Cleveland Cavaliers and the great LeBron James last night. And I'm telling a lot of people, and I said it before the season, the Sacramento Kings, if they start taking the ball down inside the paint with Cousins, and even if they start to just penetrate and make him the go-to guy, they'll be a number 8 seed in the Western Conference Big C. That's my belief, even though Rudy Gay is injured. I also want to say that everybody who loves the world of sports, I hope that you're not celebrating being an ignorant sycophant, a dumb person. Those days are over. And so a lot of people think you're just a big old dumb jock. You just want to play football and get drunk and lift weights. That's gone. Those days are over. There's a bright side to the world of social consciousness, and it's for men, it's for women, it's for every group of people, and Big C Sports is heading that charge. It's not Fox Sports that started bringing up social issues, sports and race and politics. It wasn't ESPN that did that. That was Big C. That was you, Big C. In fact, I was watching Van Jones last night on TV, and I said, how did Big C get on TV again? You look like Van Jones, but a little bit more muscular. Were you on CNN last night, Big C?
I love Van Jones. He's such an angelic talker.
Yeah.
And, knowledgeable individual, and that's one of the things we don't have. It's just like when you think about President Trump today, and you listen to the oratory of both of these men, as far as how confident they are in speaking and how intelligent they are in speaking.
Yeah.
It's like when the Mexican president today, Pena, I believe his name.
Yeah.
Revoked on the meeting with President Trump, said, I'm not meeting with this guy.
Yeah.
Okay? And then after, he announced his publicans, then Trump wanted to go on Twitter saying that he canceled.
Yeah.
This is after he's already made a statement on the media.
Yeah.
He's spoken about it. But he wanted to take credit for not meeting with the guy after the guy said, I won't meet with you because you're stupid. I just look at all of what we're doing. I love the world of sports. And when I think about, it would be almost like comparing the Cleveland Browns, Charlton organization, to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And if people want to have a comparison in sports from one to another,
yeah.
you got to look at how this organization's been handled, how dismal it is. How many bad moves that they've made talking about them benefiting the organization. We got Super Bowl 51 coming up in a week and a half.
Yeah.
Okay? And you got to think about it. Other than the two teams that are actually playing, the Cleveland Browns have the third largest lineup in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
When you think about players that were with their team last year, the Cleveland Browns had 5 players that were very integral in getting both of these teams into the Super Bowl.
Wow.
They played key roles all year long as starters. And so this is what we look at with our president, our new president-elect now.
Yeah.
Is that he is going to be responsible for driving a lot of people into poverty. Because when prices of products go so high, and they always talk about cost cutting, where do you cut costs first in an organization?
Yeah.
You cut salaries, Charlton. You either restructure, but that's what you do in sports. You restructure contracts. But in the mainstream world, you don't restructure salary, you eliminate position. This position is being eliminated. This is what the people who vote for him don't understand. He's going to create jobs, but how many jobs are going to be lost because businesses have such a high overhead? They sold Obamacare farce as running up the price price of doing business.
Yeah.
Which is, we both know it's the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
Okay? But some people couldn't pronounce that. So
Hold on. You saying Obamacare is really the Affordable Care? Well, let me not cancel my Obamacare because I don't want Obamacare. I do want the Affordable Care Act, though, Big C. That's what a lot of the Caucasian voters down in the South, they just, I mean, I understand education. It's not always a color thing, but sometimes it is. And when I meet knuckleheads, I just call them knuckleheads. And Rush Limbaugh's a knucklehead. I mean, that guy, how long will he live? He's probably about 400 pounds. He's not healthy. But he's always sweating, and he sweats when he sits down, Big C. You know he's going to need Obamacare, Big C. Why would he turn it down? Oh, okay, too much Oxycontin. Is he the Oxycontin or cocaine that makes you sweat? Which one is he on? I'm just wondering. And speaking of that, this segment is sponsored by United Labor Guaranteed Life Insurance up to $100,000. With no medical questions. We are also endorsed by the American Heart Association, Rush Limbaugh, and the American Cancer Society, Donald Trump. And we are also working with all of the unions in the country under the AFL-CIO. And our goal is to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers because we want to put people back to work. And you don't have to be a millionaire to join our company, Big C, unlike the White House. So I just want to say, tweet out the Charlton and Big C Sports. I also want to talk about being a solution. When you listen to Big C Sports, we're not just going to read the scores, turn on to some other channel for that. We're going to talk about how we can help Americans. We're going to be getting into business credit, which is the entrepreneur way, which is what Big C Sports is all about. We're going to show people how to get business credit between $30,000 to $50,000 through our credit companies that we are affiliating with. And I want to say that's for every American in all 50 states. You're not going to get that on ESPN. You're not going to get that on Fox Sports. You're not going to get it on ABC, NBS. You're not even going to get it from the Sporting Green that plagiarizes our show, Big C. So I just want to have, if you want information on that, tweet out to Big C Sports and also at Yes Charlton. That's YES Charlton on Twitter. Big C, I love what we do. I love the sports world. And I love intelligent people. And I love that you're one of the most bold people that I've ever met. You're not a sycophant, never have been. And I wonder sometimes, like a lot of afraid black men on TV, man, how do you talk that way around white men? Because we know the fact of the matter is a lot of times people are afraid to, but you're not.
Well, Charlton, I think being afraid a lot of times is lacking intelligence. People call us cocky, and I've heard that I'm cocky and arrogant for a long time, you know, and I use a little deodorant, so, you know,
Yeah.
To doubt yourself as a person,
yeah,
as a man, as a human being. I think for so long, depending on the reasons of the country that you've come from,
yeah,
that it's taught to you a generational thing. But, you know, when we looked out, you know, I look at the professional sports teams, all the leagues.
Yeah.
You know, they have to do disclosure, okay?
Yeah.
Teams have to do disclosure because they face taxes and fines. When you look at the NBA, you know, you look at a team like the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Who are $30 million over cap.
Wow.
You know, and that's going to cost them $30 million in luxury tax money. That's the kind of money. But teams have to disclose what their cap is, and everybody has a set cap. The NFL, each roster has a cap of $63 million. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the salary cap per team. It's going to go up next year.
Yeah.
$63 million. The NBA, I believe, it's a $170 million cap per year.
Wow.
But what is the cap at the White House? You know, we never questioned the president in the past because we've all been reasonable and conscious with the taxpayers.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Donald Trump has brought in all these billionaires, okay?
Yeah.
And they said that they don't need the money to do the job. But I would love the American public to demand a copy of the salaries that all of his immediate staff is making.
He's not going to do it.
But this is something that the American, and especially the people who voted for it, and they say, well, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Because this is the money that can be going to other entities in the United States.
Well,
education, Jonathan, education.
Yeah.
Okay? This is where it can go. First and foremost, education. If none of these people that he's hired need the money,
yeah,
put it into the education system. And so when you look at some of these smaller communities
yeah,
that don't have it, Charles,
yeah,
that need help educate, and he's talking about cutting back funds from the sanctuary cities in America now that don't turn over, as he says, these undocumented aliens in America. And I want to ask this question, Charles. How many undocumented Caucasians, and I'm there are more people of the Anglo complexion in America that are here undocumented and illegally than they are of Hispanics, Charlton, in the United States.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said there's going to be a wall built to block Europeans from coming over too. In fact, the Native Americans should have built that wall for about 500 years ago, Big C. You know, maybe they should have had Donald Trump represent them. They would have built the wall too. I mean, it's so weird to have bigotry being, you know, the thing that people can say is fashionable now. You know, sexism and racism, we thought that died. I mean, maybe I'm naive. Maybe it's never dead. It's just people go underground and they tacitly consent to it. But I have too many friends that are Caucasian and conscious Caucasian, not the dumb person who just ready to have a six-pack and put on the whatever.
Charles, look at it from this perspective.
Yeah.
What if Robbie Goodell, Gary Bettman, Donald Silver, and I can't think of the commissioner of baseball's name right now.
Manfred. Kurt Manfred. Rob Manfred.
Okay. What if these four most powerful sports entities in America and really in the world, what if they got together and said that we're going to ostracize a certain culture, a certain race?
White Americans? You mean white Americans?
Yeah. Seriously, we got to kick all the whites out of all our leagues.
Yeah.
What would be the backlash against these professional leagues? You know, how anti-American, how racist would people think of them at that point?
Yeah.
Okay? This is what we look at. You know, when we have teams, I don't see a sports team in America that convolutes racism, okay? Because
right.
When you look at any roster, even in hockey now, when I see a black guy on the ice, I think, you know, it's the pumpkin.
Okay, big. Don't drink moonshine before you watch hockey, okay? Don't drink the moonshine.
When we look at these things, but, you know, and I've gone to many hockey games.
Yeah.
But I've never heard people in the crowd saying anything about the black player in a racial epithet. You know, they talk about him because he's an opposing player. Okay?
Yeah.
Just like they talk about the rest of the group.
Yeah.
You know, without teeth.
Yeah.
But, you know, when we sit there, you know, Jackie Robinson's era in baseball doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have the racist anti-cultural slurs going on in the game. And nor does the Jim Brown era of the NFL exist where they could call him anything and do extra punches when he was on the ground.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore, Charlton. And the NBA, it's not a blackout situation where black players can't play. All right? And only blacks you saw on the court with some of the lines. But this is a game that American politics, when you look at sports, can take not one page from, Charlton, all pages. Okay? Because when we look at the fans in the stands, Charlton, there's no racism in Alabama on Saturday.
Right.
In that stadium.
Yeah.
When you got 80% of the players on the field being African American and 90% of the fans in the stands being white.
Yeah.
There's no racism. So why does it have to be on Sunday and Monday?
I agree.
You know, that we have racism.
I agree.
So, I mean, American culture can learn so much from the world of sports.
Yeah.
When you look at broadcasters on television and listen to them on radio like we are, or even read the sports page, Charlton.
Yeah.
Who are the writers? 85-90% of the writers, they're white, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're white. They're earning a living off of multi-diverse culture that's out there.
I agree.
Now, those are cultures, sporting teams are cultures, sporting leagues are cultures. And they're earning a living with gusto. They're praising them. You know, they're like sunshine. You know, it makes you feel good when they're around them.
Yeah.
But they don't invite them to the house, I guarantee you that. Not the dark one.
That's it. Well, see, you know, that is so powerful that you're saying that. Go ahead, Big C. Go ahead.
But when you think about it, why can't America take its page out of America's leading entity?
Yeah.
The world of sports. The world of sports is as powerful as any corporation on Wall Street because it is Wall Street. It dictates the pulse of America. The pulse of America is feeling good when they're watching sports. So if you can watch these people of a different culture, of a different ethnicity, perform in front of you, and they're the life of your life. They're like your child.
Yeah.
When you see a child, they put that smile on your face, and they make you feel good all over. They don't even have to say anything. They just look at daddy, and it's like, damn, you know what? I know she wants something, and I can't even say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, this is what we see when we see one of our favorite sporting teams or one of our favorites. It's like when a fan sees an athlete, even a former athlete, walking down the street, Charles.
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, I want his autograph. I just want to, shake his hand. Can I take a picture with you? People do this. I was talking with Bo Jackson a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we were in the same airport, and we sitting there chit-chat. And people, Mr. Jackson, take a picture with you.
Yeah.
And Bo only had one request. I don't mind getting your picture. Just don't let me see it out on some site you're trying to sell.
Yeah.
Because I'm giving it to you because you appreciate who I am and what I was.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving it to you to go out there and take it and make somebody else pay you for it because I'm not charging you to be it. This is what a well-thought-out man, not athlete, man would say.
Yeah. And big.
Don't go out trying to profit on me and forcing someone else because I didn't charge you.
Yeah.
This is what Donald Trump needs to do. He's out here trying to profit. You can't tell me he's trying to build a wall for the benefit of America. We have to look at the corporation that get the contract for anything that he puts forth in America over the next 4 years.
Well, Big C.
Corporations and their affiliation to him. That's part of the reason why he won't release this tax.
I agree very much with what you're saying. I want to say this segment is sponsored by Guaranteed Life Insurance. We are One Life America Life Insurance, and we're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. And tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports at Yes Charlton. That's YES Charlton. And we're looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers because we want to put people back to work. And we will pay your E&O insurance up to $1 million per agent. Up to $1 million per agent. Who does that? Big C Sports does it with One Life America Life Insurance. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports if you're looking for work. And I just want to say this, Big C, because this is so important to me. I love the fact that we understand there's conscious people and there's ignorant people. We don't expect a lot to come from ignorant people. They just want to know who won the game. That's why there are a lot of radio stations around that sound the same. And I'm very critical of myself and critical of other people, but I got to bring this point up because it hits home to me. If you don't stand up for the least fortunate, then you're part of the problem. When I look at one of the greatest college basketball coaches, I've never met the man, but you look at the late Dean Smith. And the late Dean Smith, when he had North Carolina basketball, and he took his team all around the country to play in venues in the South. And now, if they would not allow their African-American athletes to stay in the hotels, Dean Smith would take his white players and the black players and say, none of us are going to stay, because he lived by principle, not just by money. Now, let me contrast that with the great Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots. You can vote for who you want, Democrat or Republican. I voted both. I'm not one monolithic voice. But this new fascist Republican Party that we have, just call it what it is. When I look at Robert Kraft, he's one of the wealthiest Americans in the United States of America. And he openly supports a bigot. Okay? He openly supports somebody who's like George McGovern. He openly does it. He and Tom Brady. And the late Dean Smith had a lot more class than Bob Kraft. And he would not sit there and condone that Governor Wallace mentality of Jim Crow and bigotry that Donald Trump supports and endorses with Bannon. And they also ostracize some of the latest, the best Republican that I've ever thought at any time. It may be John McCain because he fought for this country. He was also a captain in war, and he's a fair man. And he defended the bigots when they were calling Obama a Muslim and said he was a bigot and all that stuff, that he was anti-white. John McCain in a white audience said, no, that's not true. That is not true. He's a good man. We just happen to have differences politically. John McCain, in my opinion, is one of the greatest American heroes because he's not a bigot. Okay, he's not like Donald Trump. And he even called John McCain not a hero because he was captured in war. Well, back to Robert Kraft and Dean Smith, Big C. You've known about both of these men. How can Dean Smith have the class to not want to endorse a company or give them one penny that was a bigoted company, but not want to lend or even rent to African Americans for basketball teams? But Robert Kraft is going to speak at Trump's, and on his behalf, because they love him so much. How do they look at any of the black American athletes in the eye and say, we respect you, your wives, and your kids? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charles, I guess I'm going to have to check and see where Gillette razors are made at, because I'm having a hard time thinking that they're, crafted here in America.
Is that why I got these razor bumps? Because I'm buying those Gillette razors? I'm going to boycott those too, Big C.
When that import tariff comes into and this is what we talk about. Who do you cut favors for? Robert Kraft is a friend. Robert Kraft owns the largest razor company in the world.
Yeah.
So they're not produced in America. America.
Yeah.
It's overseas. So is the raises going to go up 25%, 30%? That Robert Kraft is importing into the United States because he's a friend of Donald Trump, or
wow.
the price is going to stay basically the same. And anybody else who's affiliated with this man, and so when you see people as a Robert Kraft or any other major corporate business owner in America, and they're backing Donald Trump, and he's talking about raising the tariffs on the imports, but dropping the taxes on the corporations in America. How does that work? You're dropping the taxes because those people that are your friends are importing the goods. So you make it look like they're paying more on one end, Charlton, but they're paying less on the other end, which they're still paying less. And if they're paying less, this is what the American public needs to understand.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're paying less taxes as a corporation, how does America make it up as a country? You know, there's not that, yes, we have the poor people and the medium class that outnumber the rich people, Charlton, but
yeah.
there's 84% of the wealthy America, 84% of the wealth in America belongs to 1% of the population.
Wow.
84. So think about the tax cut that's going to kill the layman person, the civil service. When we talk about police, the fire department, these services that are provided, ambulance service, what's going to happen when somebody in your family has a heart attack and you can't get an ambulance, or you can't get the paramedics from the fire department because there's been a cutback?
Well, how is Rush Limbaugh going to get to the hospital if they don't have Affordable Care Act, Big C? He can't qualify with a health check.
Well, let's just get a forklift and lift his on out. You know.
Who's going to handle his housing card, and who's going to leave that to in his will, Big C?
You know, but this is what we have to look at. You know, and it's nice to be gay-ho and done. I'm all about anybody who great jobs. I mean, because there's a couple people down the street that's going to need some help. I'm tired of them coming over here. But, you know,
getting free moonshine. I understand how you feel, Big C.
Can I get a drink? You know?
Yeah.
The water hose is right there. Get all you want.
Hey, well, when you think about drinking, did you notice in the AFC Championship game, after the game, when they brought the great Robert Kraft, you know, the support of Donald Trump and all that love that he gives him for being a segregationist and all that jazz, did you notice he was a little bit slurred with his speech? I didn't know if he was having a stroke or he just put down the drink. Big C, your thoughts?
You want to tell me that was Pepsi he was drinking?
I thought, maybe it was. Okay.
It was brown water he was drinking. He was drinking some brown water in the booth.
That's funny, Big C.
You know, he was leaning back. Well, he was trying to stay warm. He could call that antifreeze.
Okay, maybe that's what it is. I want to say in the fight.
Put it this way, Dawson. Any owner in the AFC, if you've been to an NFL owners meeting, okay, in the AFC,
Yeah.
who's in the AFC as an owner? The Oxycontin King.
Okay. Yeah.
And when he's under that, and what do you think he washed the pills down? It's not a bottle of water.
Okay.
You know, he washed the pills down with.
I have no idea, Big C. In the last about 3 minutes of the program today, Big C, I want to say this final segment is sponsored by the Big C Sports. We also offer athletic insurance. We can cover anyone in the country, whether you're a professional athlete or a college or even a high school or mom and pop soccer team. And I want to say it's so important that we bring this up. Big C, in the last 3 minutes, I know we talk about a lot of things in sports and in politics and how the Oscars and all these great actors, black and white. I love diversity. I mean, America is about culture. And even, I just want to bring this up for anybody who thinks that we're not all the same. Just Google Dr. S.B. Leakey and Gregor Mendel. They all opine that all life existed and began in Africa. That we're all from the African continent. Okay, every single human being was on the African continent before the diaspora, and humans populated all over the world. We're all the same culture. We're all bleed the same. We all do. So that's why I want to have you close it out this way, Big C. In the world of sports, it galvanizes people more than religion, okay, more than politics, and that's why sports, and the thing you started, Big C Sports, you started this, and a lot of people said, man, if I were you, I wouldn't be so bold to white people because you might lose your job. Well, Big C owns Big C Sports, okay? If you can close out in the last minute, Big C, what is it going to take to bring our society together outside of being honest and not having alternative facts? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, I had an honest staff who couldn't remember who an actress was at the beginning of the show. Mary Louise Parker, I remember, you know, she played weeds. Okay, and that's what it is. But when we talk about boldness, Charlton, it's not bold. It's about being candid. And when you want to be factual about something, be concise, Charlton. Don't mislead people.
Yeah.
Be concise. Don't say what you think they want to hear, but be concise about facts and actuality, the truth, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, and fabricate a story. It's like when I was talking about the officials at a game.
Yeah.
That call didn't exist. You know, even though you saw it on replay and everything else, it didn't exist. You know, when an athlete goes out to perform, Charlton, you get a quarterback in the huddle. We're going to have two of the greatest in the game playing, Charlton.
Yeah.
Ryan and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Regardless of political belief.
Yeah.
But when they get in the huddle and they make a call, they're concise about what they're doing, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're determined, they're concise. They're not lying to their teammates, making up some fictitious. But we're going to call an alternative play here because I know you don't know what this is.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting on the audible at the line of scrimmage in the Super Bowl to say, Kellyanne Conway.
Oh, like Omaha, alternative facts. We're going to hear that call, Big C?
Alternative facts to Kellyanne Conway. There'll be a call in the Super Bowl at the line of scrimmage.
That's funny.
When we're looking at sports, and when you're going out and you're having a directive,
Yeah.
you know, the alternative facts was not Dan Quinn turning the Falcons around from a 500 team to the Super Bowl this year, okay?
Yeah.
That was an alternative fact. That was being concise and factual. Setting out a mission when he was hired and accomplishing.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick being consistent by being concise, John.
Yeah.
Getting his team to the playoffs 11 years.
Yeah.
He's been a runner since he's been there. You know, to the championship game, not just the playoffs, but to the championship, AFC championship.
Yeah.
Been in the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
But this is what we look at in the world of sports. And this is what sports teaches people. It's not camaraderie. It's not just gamesmanship. It's
Yeah.
not just teamwork. It's about being proficient and concise about what you do in life.
Well, Big
And this is what we do on our show, Jonathan.
Yeah.
We're proficient and we're concise about what we give our listeners, American and world public, because we tell the truth. We're not Kellyanne Conway. You know, this is made up. We're not fake news and Fox News is. Okay?
Yeah. Oh, Fox?
This is BS fake news. And, you know, period.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to call a spade a spade. Let me look what color I am.
I understand. I do want to acknowledge, like the great Tom Brady, the next time he stands up and Willie McGinnis, you know, played at USC and also New England, helped Brady win the Super Bowl too. Was a great linebacker. When the great Willie McGinnis gives Tom an interview and says, "Man, I love you, brother. I love you, brother. Hey, I love you too, brother." Yeah, I hope he remembers that when Willie drives home, he's going to be under the stop and frisk mentality. Tom Brady won't, he and his wife Giselle. But Willie, you may love your brother, but your brother's not voting for you or your kids. Just keep that in mind as you all become sycophants of these athletes. I want to say, Big C, it's true. It's just a real truth, and somebody got to tell you. And we're always going to tell you the truth every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide. Follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, the #1 media network in the United States. And Big C Sports is the #1 sports show in the universe every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide. And we also say there's never an excuse for domestic violence. No woman should have to go through that garbage on her own. If you see anyone in trouble, call 911. And as we always say on every program, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we wish that you have a super fantastic day.